Welcome to Latina in America, your bilingual destination for culture, professions, and travel. I am Rosie. In this special episode, we are answering some questions our listeners have asked. Many of them have pets or know someone who does. Now, do you know that only about 5% of all veterinarians in the United States are Latino or Latinas? Only 5%. It is an honor to have Dr. Dorothy De Dios Milner with us today, who will share her journey and answer our questions about what it takes to become a veterinarian and how to improve the quality of life of our beloved pets. Dr. Dorothy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rosie. Thank you so much for having me. I have been looking forward to this.
I have been waiting for this episode for some time because during your journey in veterinary medicine, also because some of the audience, they have questions that they want to know. And now that you graduated and you are embracing this new stage in your life, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to your inspiration to go into veterinary medicine and tell us about your culture and how your background influenced that decision.
I moved around a lot when I was younger. I lived in different states in the U.S. So we moved here from Mexico. I lived in Mexicali for the first 8 years of my life, and then we came here. I traveled around a little bit before we finally settled in the Calexico-Mexicali border. So that's where a lot of my experience I talk about growing up came from. So I consider myself a border town girl, back and forth between Calexico and Mexicali a lot. So when I was trying to decide what to do after high school, my brother was one that encouraged me to go to school to get my degree in biology. And he sort of prefaced it, ahí puedes ver qué es lo que te gusta y qué es lo que quieres hacer después de ahí. So during that time, I feel like I became very fascinated with animal behavior. And that's what ultimately led me to choose my emphasis in animal physiology and behavior at Arizona State, where I finished my undergrad. In that time, I took a class that was an animal physiology course. And that's why I feel like everything really clicked for me in the sense that I really enjoyed understanding how things worked, how medicine could influence those processes. And then that's when I realized that veterinary medicine just brings everything together that I enjoy, things like science, medicine, and helping animals.
Yes, and in that transition, there are so many things that takes place 10 years in the making, from undergrad to now becoming a doctor. What are those things that you had to prepare, things that you have to learn? Because if you're not exposed to this, you have to learn a lot of it on your own or waiting on mentors, and about the course, about the classes, about how to prepare yourself, about the application, about the possibility and the probability that you were able to do something. How was that process for you?
A lot of it I had to figure out on my own. And obviously some of it was through talking to mentors, like you said. And first veterinarians that I could say I met, her name is Cecilia. She was the director of the cohort that I was in and doing my first 2 years in community college. Ella era veterinaria en Mexicali, se vino a Estados Unidos. El maestra, platicando con ella fue cuando empezamos a explorar la idea de yo ir a la escuela de veterinaria. Y ella fue la que me dijo, ¿sabes que la Universidad de Arizona abrió un programa en los siguientes años? Desde ese entonces yo ya tenía la idea que de ir a la Universidad de Arizona. It just took a lot longer for them to open, but that's okay because I didn't really have all of the requirements, if any, other than like my bachelor's. So one day I just went online and researched how do you go to veterinary school. And I started really understanding the application process, the testing that you had to do, the requirements, the animal hours that you needed to have, volunteer hours, community server hours, things like that. So I slowly started gathering those hours. I remember actually talking to one of my bosses from Arizona Western College. I remember talking to him and his wife and telling them, oh, I really want to go to vet school, but I can't apply right now because I really have the hours. I want to find these experiences a little bit more. And they were the ones that kind of set the idea of, why don't you reach out to clinics in your area and see if anyone is able to give you that opportunity? So shortly after I graduated at ASU, I printed out my resume. I, in the objective, said an aspiring veterinarian looking for hours, looking for the opportunity to work there and learn from them. I searched veterinarians within my 5 to 10 mile radius. I took a day and I dropped off my resume at each one of these places. And I basically said, my name is Dorothy and this is what I'm looking to do. And only one person called me. They were like, well, we're actually looking to hire an assistant, more like reception assistant opportunity. Would you be open to that? And I said, yes, of course. And I was there for close to a year. But there was a point that I felt like I wanted to learn more. And the doctor there actually introduced me to another clinic. And I started working at the other clinic nearby to get more experience, more exposure. And then honestly, at some point, life just happened. And I realized that I had gotten sidetracked from what I intended to do, which was go to vet school. So I got myself back on track. I talked to some of the vets that I worked with, and they helped me with the application process, including reaching back out to my mentor from the beginning, Cecilia, and just having her encouragement was huge in helping me gather up the courage to apply.
Qué importante todo lo que has dicho. It's so important what you have said because it's not a straight path, pero la persistencia, saber que eso es lo que quieres, to be exposed to it and be willing to learn. The financial aspect of it, how was it? How did you navigate all that?
That's a really important topic that I feel like we don't talk a lot about. We often encourage people to go to college in general. I think it's great. I think college exposes you to a lot of different things of life that you probably wouldn't otherwise experience. But we don't talk about finances enough. And I was very grateful to have received a scholarship through my first 2 years of college that paid for my entire associate's degree. So I thankfully didn't have to take out loans for that. But when I went to Arizona State, I did take out loans. And thankfully, my mom supported me through that. Yo trabajé mis 3 años de undergrad. Trabajé as front desk assistant at the dorms. I worked as RA. And then I also worked at front desk assistant here at ASU. It wasn't enough to cover my rent and all the other things that I wanted to do. So I started working at Ross. I worked there almost my entire ASU career. Through those jobs, I was able to fund my living, but I did have to take out loans for school. My mom and my brother were also very supportive. Not everyone has that, unfortunately, but if you have the slightest opportunity to do it, know that your family will support you no matter what. And then another big deterrent to not apply to vet school is realizing how expensive it can be. The applications can be from $400 to thousands of dollars, depending on how many schools you're intending to apply. If the school that you're wanting to go to requires you to take the GRE or some sort of test like that, that's additional money that you have to spend for. So know that there are certain funding opportunities that through the VAMCAS, they'll sponsor those application fees. Sometimes you do have to pay that on your own, unfortunately. And that was my case. But by the time I decided to apply, I had already been working for some time and was able to save money for these things. That was another big factor why I decided not to go to vet school right away, was because I didn't have the money, couldn't afford to go to out of state and they spend out of state tuition somewhere else. I felt like I was pretty capped at my limits right there. So I decided to work, make money, and save what I could. I did have a pretty significant life event happen sometime between undergrad and grad school where I had to have an emergency surgery. Eventually, I ended up having to spend over 10 grand, and that put me back a lot. The coincidence of it is that the last month I paid off my medical debt is the month that I got my acceptance letter to vet school. And then in veterinary school, once you get here, student loans are a way which pay for our schooling. I have a lot of student loans. I did get a lot of scholarships throughout the process too, so that helped in some ways. With my scholarships, I was able to fund at least one of my semesters, which it may not sound like a lot, but it is a lot in the long run. I would do a lot of relief work as a veterinary technician. There is a service that allows you to fill in different veterinary hospitals as a technician if you have the skills, and then they just pay you for that shift. So I did a lot of that, especially during my breaks or in times that felt like I was going to be a little bit more needing the extra help. And married, having my husband's support was huge. Everyone's journey is going to be different, but I think if you really want it and you have the right support group, they'll help you get there.
Yes, because finances, that put an extra level of stress to an already demanding curriculum. So it's very important to know how we are going to take steps, because the long term is that we want to succeed. On your Instagram, you take us through a journey, the journey of all the clinicals that you have done, emergency medicine, orthopedic surgery, shelter medicine. What happens during those clinicals? What is expected from you? What is the schedule like? And how do you move from one to the next?
Each rotation will have different requirements. Some of them will be primarily shadowing the veterinarian, their staff. Others will allow you to really get your hands on and learn that way through surgery experience, client communication, being able to read your own rooms. One thing that's very important is that before you go into each rotation, you set out specific goals for yourself, tailoring them to what it is that you want to get out of this rotation. For me in particular, there were specific rotations that I knew I wanted to go in there and be able to do this many number of surgeries, really communicating with the veterinarian and the staff and letting them what it is that you want to get out of is important because they'll support you and they'll put you in those situations where you want to learn. The scheduling will change depending on where you're at and what you're doing. Moving on from one rotation to another one is really hard, at least for me, because towards the end of the rotation, I was already connecting with the team, with their client. But then every rotation I went into, it was a new opportunity to create that same relationship I had with the others.
I'll give you an experience in different areas, different specialties, talking to the pet parent or pet owner, depending how people like to approach it. Tú sabes, hace tiempo, cuando nosotros teníamos mascotas, eran mascotas, pero ahora son parte de la familia. So that is a shift that I have noticed over the years. And I love my pets. I love them. How being exposed to different specialties and to different experiences, how that has changed the way that you approach delivering that service as a doctor.
From the beginning, I've been a very open-minded and curious person with an open heart, wanting to understand them and meet them where they're at today, openly communicate with people. I also, having had all these experiences at these specialties, have helped me understand that everyone practices medicine differently. There's so many resources out there for pet parents to reach out to if they need them. So if I'm not able to provide them with an answer, I know that there's probably somebody in the next city or in this specialty hospital that might be able to serve them best.
You mentioned something about going to different places. In your experience, have you been able to see any direct impact of traveling or maybe even for conferences?
Definitely through conferences or even through my different rotations when I was in northern Arizona in the city versus rural Arizona. And that was very valuable because if I would have stuck to one specific region with one specific demographic, I would have a little bit more of a narrow mind into like how we're supposed to do things. But having all this experience in different environments and with different veterinarians and different demographics has really helped me understand that there's so much that we can do to ultimately help them out the best way that we can.
What you would like for pet parents to know when they are observing their pet or when they are going to see the doctor?
What are things that people can do at home? Just pay attention to their daily habits. Pay attention to how they eat, how they drink, how they urinate, how they behave. And if you ever notice any changes, bring those up to your vet, bring them up at their wellness visits, because there are things that we can catch on early and potentially prevent it from getting worse. That's where preventative care is very important, from the vaccines to getting them spayed or neutered to just overall routine visits and wellness checkups to even dental care, particularly in small animals. These are all very important things that we can do to keep pets healthy and catch things early. And know that there's so many ways to access this kind of care too, from low-cost clinics to full-service practices. There's almost something for everybody out there. And preventative care is so important because if you do it early, it can make a huge difference later. One thing that I really encourage people is to look into pet insurance or simply create some sort of savings funds for their pets, whether it is for just a routine visit or to have in case of emergencies, because emergencies can really add up. And unfortunately, sometimes finances do play a role in the care that a pet receives. So With that being said, I'm very supportive of people either seeking pet insurances or creating a little pet fund for their pets for whenever they need it. And then one last thing that I have is that don't feel pressure to buy whatever's trending online. Now with social media and ads, we see something and we want to get it because it said it was going to work. But truthfully, do your research. If you're not sure about a product, especially, if it's marketing to do something, ask your vet. We're here to help research these products for you and determine whether or not they're going to be helpful. I mean, at least for me, I don't want my clients spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on products that may not do anything other than just spend their money.
It is so important because we have so much information, and the information, the way it is presented, it looks so convincing. One of your mentors is also a Latina doctor. What is like the representation and the diversity within the veterinary medicine? What has been your experience?
There's not very many Latina veterinarians or veterinary staff that I encountered throughout this career. I have worked in places where it was only me and two other people of color in a space of over 100 people.
And what do you wish students or someone who is in a profession and think veterinary medicine is for me, what do you wish to let them know?
For those that may be interested in veterinary medicine or just working with animals in general, put yourself out there. There's so many ways to work with animals, from shelter medicine to research to zoo medicine, wildlife rehab to many other experiences. And know that one experience is going to open another door for you. Try it out. And if you realize that working with animals is not for you, it's okay. It's not for everybody, but at least you'll know that you gave it a shot. You gave yourself an opportunity, and that experience will still teach you something valuable, and you'll have something to work on from there.
How do you decide, or when do you know what type of veterinary doctor you wanted to be, as far as small animals or perhaps large animals? When did you make that decision during your schooling?
For everyone, it's going to be a little different depending on the experiences that you have and sort of your interests and sort of what other factors. For example, I worked with other veterinarians as a veterinary technician, so I sort of already knew some of the different departments that you can work with as a small animal veterinarian, sort of the different specialties that you can work with as a small animal veterinarian. And going into vet school, I already had an idea, but I still remained open to the opportunities.
And now that you have graduated, Dr. Dorothy, what is in the future for you?
Looking ahead, I want to continue developing as a vet and continue to mentor aspiring vets. I have different interests, from potentially specializing to opening up my own practice to seeking other roles in medicine, like teaching or leadership. I'm open to seeing where the path takes me.
Dr. Dorothy, I am so thankful that you are here today. I am so inspired by what you do. Thank you so much for documenting your progress, because it gave us an idea of what it's like with the pictures that you put and the progress and all the clinicals. I learned quite a bit with it. Y es información bilingüe la que está. Y si alguien quiere preguntarle algo, what will be the best way to get in touch with you?
Si alguien quiere preguntarme algo, if you want to ask me something, personal email, drdm@gmail.com. Mi correo electrónico es dm@gmail.com. También estoy activa en mi página de Instagram. I have helped students that are working towards applying to veterinary school or getting into veterinary school. I have met with them via Zoom, and I'm happy to just chat and answer any questions you may have. Si tienes preguntas y quieres hablar por Zoom o por teléfono, también podemos hablar así. Nomás mándame mensaje y puedo responder cualquier pregunta que tienes o asesorarte en diferentes partes del proceso de aplicar a la escuela de veterinaria.
Muchas gracias for being that mentor that so many of us sometimes are looking for, and we don't even know where to begin to look for. And again, muchas gracias por poner todas tus experiencias profesionales en tu página de Instagram. Thank you for going through the process and for sharing your experiences with us.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed revisiting back my journey with you and been nice to reflect on all the hard work. Hopefully this serves as a point of inspiration for others and know that you're not alone in the process. Gracias, Rosie, por darme la oportunidad de reflexionar en todas mis experiencias y posiblemente inspirar a otras personas en seguir sus sueños.
Definitivamente, y muchas gracias por estar con nosotros. Toda su información va a estar añadida en este episodio, incluyendo su cuenta de Instagram a drdorothy.vetmed. Muchas gracias y felicidades en su graduación.
Thanks for finding and subscribing to Latina in America so you don't miss a thing. And if you like this episode, give us a 5-star review so we can be put on front of more listeners. For details and show notes and how you can connect with and support our guests, please go to latinainamericapodcast.com. Email us at latinainamericapodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at Latina in America. Links can be found on the website. This has been Rosie, a Latina in America.